Part 48. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 471. He seemed to have shot himself in the foot again. Fukang was speechless. Don't think of me as a god. In fact, I'm not as powerful as you think. Chu Qinghuang's voice was gentle, and there was always an inexplicable sense of intimacy when listening to it at night. Ziki has too much waste and its national strength is too weak, so it shows because of my extraordinary courage, it would be extremely smooth for me to sit on the throne of God. If I had stayed in Tanglin, many people would have thought that this was a matter of course for me. But if she stays in Dongling, she will be a princess peacefully and will not think about the throne because it is not necessary. Her eldest imperial brother received an imperial education since he was a child. His father took care of it himself and hired a powerful master to train him to be outstanding in all aspects. The companions around the imperial brother have also been trained since childhood. There is a distinction between monarch and ministers, but also friendship, and they have enough ability to assist the imperial brother. The second emperor brother's martial arts and archery skills were taught by his father. He is proficient in military strategy and has the power of troops and horses. He is loyal to the eldest brother and obeys his advice. Dongling has such brothers, kings, and ministers, how can it not be strong? There are also those confidants and powerful officials who were trained by my father when he was in power. Which one is not both civil and military? In comparison, no matter how powerful she is as a princess, she is not powerful enough to make people feel shocked and surprised. Fukang whispered, in my heart, the master is the most powerful, no one can compare with him. Chu Qinghuang was silent and nodded slowly, well, everything you said is right. Fukang raised the corners of his mouth, stretched out his hands to hold her in his arms, and rested his head on Chu Qinghuang's shoulder. When does the master plan to get married? Have you prepared your dowry? Fukang pursed his lips and smiled, I can marry Yanguo with me. Although Yanguo is small, it is still a country, and 2 million taels is still worth it. Although the master has said before that he will wait for King Yan for hundreds of years before merging the Yan kingdom, but marrying me as the crown prince is actually equivalent to handing the Yan kingdom into the hands of the master. Fukang's voice was gentle, anyway, I belong to the master. Yes, everything I own should belong to the master. Chu Qinghuang stretched out her hand and pinched his face, the attitude is good, and the cognition is also very good. Fukang raised his eyes, leaned over and kissed Chu Qinghuang's face, and said with some regret, tonight's Mandarin duck bath was not completed, what a pity. Chu Qinghuang's expression was momentarily subtle. Master, can we get married as soon as possible? Fukang was full of expectations, but then hesitated, it's just that we need to get the master's consent first. If we kill it first and then tell it, the master will definitely be unhappy. Chu Qinghuang said calmly, you can't wait to be my good wife. I really want to. Fukang nodded, I wish I could become my master's wife now. You are very good at using vocabulary. Chu Qinghuang said in a strange tone, you are a man, but you are willing to be a good wife. You are probably the first person in history. Fukang tightened his long arms and held Chu Qinghuang tightly in his arms. Throughout the ages, I am the only one who has the honor to be the master's good wife. Others have never had this opportunity. The two chatted incessantly, and time passed faster. After a while, a dull bell rang outside. It's morning time. Today's court meeting will take at least 3 hours. It will end before noon. After noon, the meeting will be held in the imperial study. Chu Qinghuang stood up and changed clothes. If you have nothing else to arrange, then come to court with me. Fukang really has nothing to arrange for the time being. The Eng needs adjustment, but the Chu Tianyan incident has already been revealed, and the adjustment will not be limited to just 1 or 2 days. Besides, there are still many shadow guards in the Eng escorting the food and grass back to the palace. Fukang then said, I will go to court with the master. Yuan Bao came in to ask for permission. After receiving permission, he quickly ordered the palace servants to come in and help His Majesty wash and change clothes. Chu Qing Huang allowed the palace servants to wait on her, and said calmly, "Today's lunch will be more generous. I will leave a few adults in the cabinet to eat." Yuan Bao responded respectfully, "Yes. Fukang will stay in my palace during this period. He is just staying, not sleeping." Chu Qing Huang glanced at him, and her faint words were also to remind others, "When I am free, let Qin the heavenly supervisor will calculate the auspicious day and hold a ceremony for enthroning the king." Upon hearing this, Yuan Bao quickly saluted Fukang, "Congratulations to Master Fukang, congratulations to Master Fukang." Other palace people followed suit and saluted, "Congratulations to Lord Fukang, congratulations to Lord Fukang." Fukang glanced at them expressionlessly, frowned, and looked at Chu Qing Huang. Chu Qing Huang seemed to have guessed what he was thinking, and said calmly, "The title will be called Feng Jun." So Yuan Bao quickly shouted again, "Congratulations to Lord Feng Jun, congratulations to Lord Feng Jun." Other palace people shouted, "Congratulations to Lord Feng Jun, congratulations to Lord Feng Jun." Fukang. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 472. The atmosphere in the morning was very depressing, filled with a sense of calm that a storm was about to come. All civil and military officials in the dynasty were frightened. Chu Qing Huang sat on the dragon chair, looked at the ministers in the hall who were kneeling to worship Shanhu, and said indifferently, "Ping Shen." "Thank you, Your Majesty." Chu Qing Huang got straight to the point, "Dear ladies, how did you sleep last night?" The ministers were frightened. "You must have heard about what happened last night," Chu Qing Huang said, "I want to hear your opinions." "Reporting to Your Majesty, the prince has committed the same crime as the common people when he breaks the law. I believe that the crime should be handled in accordance with the laws and regulations and cannot be tolerated. It is indeed inappropriate to harm innocent girls, but as far as I know, these girls have been sold, and the king of Jing County has their sales contracts, so. This is what I want to discuss with you today," Chu Qing Huang said calmly. "Last night I ordered Chu Suans and Yun Hung to prepare a plan and submit it. From now on, Ziki will strictly prohibit the private sale of people, especially those of fathers, or if an elder brother sells his wife, daughter, or sister in the name of gambling debts, he will be severely punished if he finds one." The ministers were palpitating. Not allowed to buy and sell wives and daughters? But as we all know, it has always been a common practice for men to sell their wives and daughters. Especially for men who have lost money in gambling houses, it is normal for men to sell their daughters. If many people in power have their eyes on the powerless daughter of a family, they will use some special means to make them willing to sell their wives and daughters. After I got the news last night, I interrogated him all night long. I already know the ins and outs of the matter, and I also know that behind Chu Tianyan's undying ambition, he is planning some sinister and dirty ideas. Chu Qing Huang's eyebrows were stained with frost, and his tone became more intense. Its indifference filled with thunderous coercion. "I can't tolerate the disregard of human life in my eyes. No matter who it is, those who offend will be severely punished." As soon as the civil and military officials got up, they knelt down again and said, "My emperor is wise." Chu Qing Huang adjusted his posture to make himself more comfortable. "Based on Chu Tianyan's incident, I will take advantage of the opportunity to talk to you, dear friends, about the style of the officials today." The ministers all shuddered. Precious wives and beautiful concubines are a man's sweet home, and lust is a man's nature. Rich and powerful men naturally want to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, and embrace them on both sides. This is human nature. The ministers were sweating profusely. But there is a limit to everything. Overindulgence is self-destruction. Chu Qing Huang looked down at everyone coldly. The yin and yang of heaven and earth are always in order. It is a very normal thing for a man to love a woman, but if someone wants to seek excitement, if you do something that violates moral ethics and crosses the bottom line, I will never tolerate it. The ministers' faces became hot and they quickly expressed their opinions. Your Majesty is wise. I am guilty. Her Majesty the Queen is only 17 years old. Who would an ordinary 17-year-old woman dare to talk about love between a man and a woman? If anyone dares to dare, they will be reprimanded for being shameless. However, at this moment, His Majesty is sitting here discussing matters between men and women with a group of middle-aged and elderly men. It is really. What are you guilty of, gentlemen? This. Someone began to quietly wipe the sweat from his forehead. I used to think that officials were human beings, and it was understandable to go to a brothel once in a while to indulge. But I was wrong. Men who like to visit brothels will regard brothels as their second homes to a greater extent. Excessive indulgence will only reveal their ugly appearance. It insults the image of a scholar and damages the dignity of the imperial court, Chu Qinghuang said calmly. So from now on, ministers of the DPRK are strictly prohibited from setting foot in the fireworks area. If one is discovered, one will be dismissed without mercy. The sweat on the foreheads of the ministers became even more intense, but they had no choice but to shout against their will, "My emperor is wise." In addition, ministers of the third rank and above in the court can have up to 3 concubines in addition to their wives, Chu Qinghuang said coldly. Outer concubines are against the rules and are irresponsible to women. They must be resolutely eliminated. As soon as these words came out, the ministers' expressions really changed. If banning officials from visiting brothels is a matter of rectification style, restricting their freedom to take concubines is a real loss of interests. It is true that men are romantic and lustful, but after reaching a certain level in the officialdom, even taking concubines is not necessarily about pure beauty, but also some benefits. If even the freedom to take concubines is deprived, Her Majesty the Queen's power will be further strengthened, and their compromise means that the power of the ministers will be gradually weakened. This is definitely not something they are willing to face. If there is another minister who indulges in women's sexual activities, I will regard him as a promiscuous person who cannot be reused. He will immediately take off his official robe and leave the imperial capital, and his descendants will not be allowed to enter the official position for 3 generations. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 473. The ministers were stunned. Do you have any objections to this? Chu Qinghuang asked lightly. Today's morning meeting is very long, and I plan to set aside 2 hours to discuss this issue with you. If you have any dissatisfaction, feel free to put it forward and I will consider it as appropriate. The ministers looked at each other with different expressions. The more they listened, the more they felt that what His Majesty said today was very unreasonable, just like local bullies oppressing defenseless people, testing the bottom line step by step, and pushing people to desperate situations. They strongly opposed it in their hearts, but dissatisfied. Who dares to be dissatisfied with Her Majesty the Queen, instead of sending it to her door to cut it for her? Moreover, the Queen was very angry at the moment. I heard that she was busy very late last night and probably slept for less than an hour. She even personally brought those innocent girls to Changming Palace for questioning. Normally when you are calm, you feel like you are not easy to mess with. Now when you are angry, who dares to express your dissatisfaction? When everyone thought like this, they couldn't help but blame Chu Tianyan in their hearts. You said that it's your own business to remain evil, so why are you dragging an innocent girl into the water? Are you still planning to give those girls to officials in the DPRK and China in order to control them? It's simply sinister and sinister. All the ministers felt scared when they thought about it. If he really succeeded, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although Chu Tianyan's conspiracy was exposed and he suffered the consequences, he also caused them to suffer. Originally, they were free to have as many concubines as they wanted, but this was great. Even the affairs of the family have been interfered with. After a while, will the queen directly issue a decree that only one husband and one wife are allowed and no concubines are allowed? If no one objects, I will continue, Chu Qinghuang said calmly, not caring what kind of waves his words would stir up in the hearts of ministers. Ministers below the third rank, in addition to their wives, can have at most 2 wives. The concubines' room, the common room and the outer room are also not allowed. The ministers frowned and listened gloomily. If the husband is irresponsible and unlucky, causing unrest in the family, the wife can propose reconciliation and divorce. Chu Qinghuang made another surprising statement: this can be written into the law and strictly enforced from top to bottom. The ancient sage said, cultivate your moral character, manage your family, govern your country, and bring peace to the world. All of you here are scholars. Only by cultivating your moral character and rectifying your own body can you set an example and become the pillars of the country. My emperor is a wise man. Yun Hung, who was involved in political affairs in the imperial study room, came out and bowed in salute. The sage said, if the mind is upright, then the body will be cultivated. If the body is cultivated, then the family will be in order. After the family is in order, the country will be governed. After the country is governed, the world will be peaceful. What your majesty is discussing today? All follow the example of the saints, and they should be respected and obeyed. The young courtiers in the court stood up in unison and saluted respectfully, I obey the will of Her Majesty the Queen. Long live my emperor! The students selected in the first year of the Queen's accession to the throne have all shown little performance after nearly a year of experience. Chu Qinghuang has cultivated these people intentionally or unintentionally. Now they have become a considerable force in the court, and they are faintly distinguished from the veterans. A counterbalanced stance. They are loyal and pure Queen's party. Although their official positions are not high, they are very courageous. They are the newborn calves not afraid of tigers. They do not look forward or backward in doing things. As long as they think they are following the right emperor, they will be loyal till death. The old ministers in the city often have nothing to do with them. Chu Qinghuang's eyes turned slightly, but his voice remained calm and unruffled. In the coming days, I will focus on renovating the Gulan-Jiaofang area. Sirs, you may wish to check when you go back to see if anyone has been placed in your mansion. Beauty chess piece. Since Chu Tianyan can think of using beauty as bait, it proves that someone has tried this method, and it is obviously very effective. After these words were spoken, the ministers were naturally shuddered again, and they all knelt down. I am terrified. There are many beautiful concubines in their backyard. They shouldn't be taken advantage of, right? From now on, if there are those who forcefully buy young girls from good families in the brothels, they will be severely punished. Those who voluntarily sell themselves out of desperation must have an official letter from the government to prove it. Otherwise, they will be regarded as contempt of the law and the crime will be increased. Chu Qinghuang read. To the adults in the front, Prince Rong and several adults from the cabinet will stay later, and the 3 ministers from the Ministry of Rights, the Ministry of Punishment, and the Ministry of Personnel will follow me to the Imperial Study Room to discuss matters. In addition, after a slight pause in his tone, Chu Qinghuang calmly threw a thunderbolt. Now that Ziki and northern Xinjiang are at war, I plan to marry the Yan Kingdom and let the Yan Kingdom's crown prince marry into Ziki and become my true king and husband. My lords, you should have no objection, right? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 474. After the words fell, the hall suddenly became quiet again. The officials were in an uproar. Marriage between Ziki and Yang Guo? Does Her Majesty the Queen mean to let Prince Yan marry into your wife? In this way, isn't it just to use the Yan kingdom as an employer to merge the two countries into one? But, report to your majesty, a veteran minister in the court said hurriedly, I think the marriage is okay, but the Yan state was once a tributary of northern Xinjiang. It is not yet known what their attitude towards the marriage is, and whether they will treat Ziki in the future. His Majesty has no idea what kind of person the Prince of Yan is, so it may not be appropriate to give him the title of a royal husband. Fukang stood beside Chu Qinghuang and glanced silently at the minister who spoke. Idiot! If the master didn't know what kind of person he was, how could he think of marriage so easily? I also feel that if you are not of my race, your heart must be different. Marriage is feasible, but for the position of the main palace, it is more appropriate to choose a legitimate son from a powerful family in the Western Qi dynasty who is both good in character and good in both civil and military affairs. I hope your majesty will think twice. Others who thought the same thing shouted in unison, Your Majesty, please think again. Fukang lowered his head and stared at his toes, trying to pretend that he was invisible. They couldn't influence his master's decision anyway. My lords, you have all been worried about my harem, and I have been given advice every now and then to fill it up, which makes me very annoyed. Chu Qinghuang's voice was indifferent and did not allow for refutation. I told you my plan today. After you go back, you can think about my intentions carefully. After saying this, she announced her resignation, stood up and left. The ministers respectfully send you off. The several important ministers who were called followed them to the imperial study room to discuss matters, while the others secretly pondered Chu Qinghuang's words. Intention. Is it possible that Her Majesty the Queen's decision to marry could have some hidden meaning? Ziki and northern Xinjiang are at war. Daz, who is Ziki's ally now, naturally, the two countries have joined forces and decided to completely carve up northern Xinjiang. Yanguo, a small subsidiary country, plays no role in it at all. There should be no need for marriage, right? Is it possible that Her Majesty the Queen wanted the Yan kingdom to submit to Ziki, but she was worried that after the war, the great Zhou dynasty would also have Yan kingdom's ideas, so she entered into a marriage alliance with the Yan kingdom in advance and brought the Yan kingdom into the Ziki camp? The ministers frowned, their expressions were silent and solemn. Firstly, men's interests were damaged, and wives and concubines were no longer free to have sex. Secondly, Her Majesty the Queen was finally willing to choose a husband, but she chose the Prince of Yan as the marriage partner, which is really disappointing. Unexpected. The ministers were really not in a good mood. But Chu Qinghuang, who had thrown several heavy thunders, had no time to pay attention to their thoughts at the moment. Getting married was her own business, so telling them already gave her enough face. It doesn't matter what their opinions are. The discussion in the royal study room lasted until noon. Most of the discussion was about the amendment of the law, which added many clauses that were beneficial to women and restricted the conduct and style of officials. Although some ministers in the court were dissatisfied with these clauses, several highly respected veterans were. It was readily accepted. Throughout the dynasties, no matter how mediocre the emperors were, there would always be a few loyal ministers in the court who were dedicated to serving the country. When it was necessary to make important decisions that benefited the people and the country, it would never be wrong to discuss the decision with these loyal ministers. The discussion process went smoothly, and Chu Qinghuang was in a good mood. At noon, the palace people came in to ask for lunch. Chu Qinghuang left several old ministers to eat together in the palace. The adults were grateful for the emperor's kindness and their attitude became more kind. The Queen Chu Qinghuang is strong when she should be strong, domineering when she should be domineering, and will naturally learn to be humble when she should be humble. After all, respecting the elderly and loving the young is a virtue passed down from ancient times. She will give the most basic respect to ministers who are veterans of 2 or 3 dynasties and have worked conscientiously all their lives, and can tolerate even some stubborn and pedantic shortcomings. After the veterans left, Chu Suans, Wen Zhan and Yun Heng, who had been waiting outside the imperial study for half an hour, walked in and respectfully saluted and greeted them. Chu Suans and Yun Heng presented handwritten memorials, while Wen Zhan presented Wen Li's oral confession. This is the inside story of Wen Li's confession last night. Your Majesty, please take a look at it. Wen Zhan put the confession on the case and took a step back. My father came to me this morning to plead for mercy and asked me to be gentle and let Wen Li go. Chu Qinghuang said calmly, how did you reply to him? Wen Zhan lowered his head and replied, how to deal with Wen Li is your Majesty's business. I have no right to make the decision. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 475. Chu Qinghuang said nothing more and silently read the confession. After a long time, he said, Wen Shangshu failed to teach his son well. He will be fined for 1 year. He will be stripped of his position as Shangshu of the Ministry of Revenue and transferred to the Ministry of Works as Zhou Shilang. Chu Suans and others were slightly surprised, and then fell silent. Stripped off the post of Minister of the Ministry of Household Affairs and transferred to the Ministry of Works as Zhou Shilang, this is no longer just a demotion, but a direct transfer away from the center of power. The Ministry of Industry is responsible for civil engineering, water conservancy projects, mansion repairs, and garden construction. In recent years, 11Chi's treasury has been tight, and there are very few things like garden rockery and mansion repairs. The emperor is not greedy for enjoyment, so the Ministry of Industry is now responsible for most of them are related to water conservancy. A minister from the Ministry of Revenue was transferred to the Ministry of Works, two departments that were completely different from each other. What could Wen Xingyun do if he left? What's more, the minister is still under the minister, so transferring him to the Ministry of Industry and having to listen to the minister in everything not only empties his power, but also puts him in a position where he knows nothing about it, and he has to learn everything from scratch. Yuan Bao, who was waiting by the side, immediately responded, I will let someone draw up the decree right now. Wen Li has damaged his personal ethics and behaves badly. He will be fined 50 slabs and imprisoned for 3 years. Chu Qinghuang said, looking up at Wen Zhan, go tell your father and say that this is after you repeatedly begged for mercy, otherwise, Wen Li would be beheaded in Keishikao. I obey your order. Wen Zhan bowed in response, thank you for your grace, your majesty. Then he resigned and took a step forward. Chu Qinghuang took the coupons from Chu Suans and Yun Heng. Did you two sleep last night? Yun Heng's eyes were all green, and Chu Suans was not much better either. He had 2 dark circles under his eyes, looking like he had stayed up all night. The writing is all good, and you can see that it was written with great care. Chu Qinghuang flipped through it casually, then picked up the teacup and took a sip. I didn't sleep all night last night either. You guys go back and catch up on your sleep first. After dinner, go to the Imperial study room to discuss matters. Yes. I'll take your leave. The two quickly excused themselves and left. The Imperial study room suddenly became quiet, and Chu Qinghuang was able to rest for a while. Master is tired. Fukang pursed his lips, go back and take a rest first. Chu Qinghuang put down the teacup and rubbed the center of his brow. I'm not that tired, I just have a headache from all these messy things. Fukang moved his lips, but what he wanted to say was stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say a word. Being an emperor is hard work. In such a big world, you have to worry about everything. I'm mentally prepared. Chu Qinghuang stood up and smiled reassuringly at him. Don't worry, let's go back and rest for a while. Fukang nodded. Chu Qinghuang brought the memorials of Chu Suans and Yun Heng back to Changming Palace, sat on the bedside, and read them leisurely. These two people are thoughtful and diligent in their work. They are good candidates for capable ministers. The person chosen by the master himself is naturally reliable. Fukang brought the hot water and put it on the ground. He squatted down and took off Chu Qinghuang's shoes and socks. I have already tried this water. The temperature is just right. Master, please foot. Both feet were submerged in the warm water. The warm feeling quickly spread from the solace of the feet to both legs. Chu Qing Huang squinted her eyes and looked down at Fukang, who was washing her feet attentively. She couldn't help but raise her eyebrows. I plan to do it in the future. Do you also work as a foot washer? Fukang's voice was gentle and soft. I can do all the work of serving the master. One of my subordinates can reach the 3 palaces and 6th courtyard. It's worthless, Chu Qing Huang sneered. You should say that one person can equal 1,000 troops. Isn't this in the palace? Where did the thousands of troops and horses come from in the palace? Fukang smiled innocently. But if it is on the battlefield, even if the subordinates cannot defeat the thousands of troops, they can still do it under the command of thousands of troops. Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows. I admire your domineering attitude. Thank you for the compliment, master. Chu Qing Huang stared at him with a smile for a while. With a gentle and virtuous wife like you by my side, I will definitely be able to reduce a lot of worries. On the outside, he is decisive, and he is her sharp weapon. On the inside, he is gentle and virtuous, and he is considerate in everything. Although palace people can do many things, no matter how well others do it, how can they be as successful as their sweetheart? With the master here, my life has light. Fukang pursed his lips and said in a very pleasant voice, the master is my salvation. Chu Qing Huang looked at him steadily, smiled, and continued to read the memorial while leaning on the bedside. After a while, Fukang wiped Chu Qing Huang's feet, and the palace attendant came over and brought the water out. Master, don't look at it. Fukang stood up, took the memorial from her hand, and put her on the bed forcefully. It's time to go to bed. Chu Qing Huang lay on the bed and looked at him, bold. Master, please wait until I wake up before punishing me. Fukang pursed his lips and smiled, with a gentle attitude. I have prepared the whip and cane in advance. Master, you can beat me as much as you want, but now you must go to bed first and wait until you are full. Only then can you have the spirit. Chu Qing Huang reached out and pinched his face. Have I allowed you to become lawless? So if I am really lawless, the master has to bear half of the responsibility. Fukang raised his eyes slightly and smiled at the corner of his lips. You can't completely blame me. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 476. Chu Qing Huang was lying on his side with his body propped up and his forehead resting on one hand. I found that not only are you getting bolder and bolder, your mouth is also getting poorer and poorer. Fukang pursed his lips and looked at her weakly. I've probably been itchy lately, Chu Qing Huang said calmly. I've been very busy these past 2 days. When I get free time in the future, I should take care of you. Fukang lowered his head and muttered, didn't the master say that he wanted to get married? Getting married? Chu Qing Huang raised an eyebrow. After getting married, I won't be able to deal with you. Yes, Fukang nodded quickly. Even if I have a baby in the future, master can still take care of me as he wants. Who is responsible for delivering the baby? Chu Qing Huang asked lightly. You gave birth. Fukang coughed and said, I will try my best to find the secret recipe for a man to have children. Chu Qing Huang was silent for a moment, with a subtle expression. Fukang may have realized how unreliable what he said was, and a look of embarrassment appeared on his handsome face. Chu Qing Huang clicked her tongue. She is really docile and obedient. Fukang leaned over and kissed her lips, like a pet acting coquettishly to please her. Soft and waxy, this subordinate will be very docile in the future. When does the master plan to set the wedding ceremony? Chu Qing Huang stretched out her hand to rub his head and said in a lazy voice, let Hong Yu do the math and see which day is auspicious, preferably 2 months later. There are too many things going on during this period, and it will take 2 or 3 months to make some preparations after the busy period is over. It's spring now and the flowers are blooming, and in 2 or 3 months it will be hot summer. Fukang pondered, I'd better schedule it in August or September. I don't have to rush in time to write a letter to master and mistress. Although he was quite anxious, there were many royal marriage ceremonies that took a long time, and he didn't want his master to have to work too hard. What if my father doesn't agree with you marrying me? Chu Qinghuang's voice was calm, as if he asked casually, don't forget that your father asked you to study in Cangyun Mountain for 3 years, not to mention that you will join the family later. How long has the penalty been extended? Just saying that it has not expired for 3 years, my father will not be able to let you get what you want so smoothly. Fukang was silent. What should we do? Chu Qinghuang said, how do I know what to do? I can go and ask the master's wife, Fukang whispered, with a slightly stunned expression. In view of my performance during this time in Cangyun Mountain, I think the master's wife is quite satisfied with me, so asking the master's wife should be a feasible solution. Chu Qinghuang raised an eyebrow, what if the master's wife doesn't agree? Fukang shook his head, no, the master's wife is very gentle as a bodhisattva's heart. When my subordinate was in Cangyun Mountain, the master's wife took good care of me. Fukang said while kissing Chu Qinghuang's hand, and at the end he did not forget to add, the master is as gentle as the mistress. Even if I am beautiful and generous in your heart, and my status is unparalleled, don't say anything against your will. Chu Qinghuang said lightly, looking at me inside and outside the palace, except for you, no one else dares to say that I am gentle. Fukang pouted, master is gentle. Chu Qinghuang was silent. Master, go to sleep. I'm going to see Hongyu. Fukang kissed her face. The delicate touch made him a little greedy. He couldn't help but kiss her lips again, set the date early. I can feel at ease. Like a daughter-in-law waiting to be married. Chu Qinghuang closed her eyes, with a smile on her lips, let Chen Hai bring someone over tonight to have you measured. The robe of the royal husband can be prepared in advance. It's done, jade crown, belt, python robe, jade pendant, everything that needs to be prepared, don't wait until it's too late when you need to use it. Fukang had already stood up, but when he heard this, he felt a surge of heat in his heart. He couldn't help but squat down again, and suddenly reached out to hug Chu Qinghuang, with such force that he felt like he wanted to rub her into his arms. Chu Qinghuang frowned, why are you so excited? I'm just happy. Fukang buried his head on her shoulder and neck, his voice was muffled, but he couldn't hide the throbbing of joy, this subordinate will also have a status in the future. Chu Qinghuang sighed deeply, this child. Why are you acting like a fool all of a sudden? After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 477. When Fukang saw Hongyu, he was sitting in a daze on the palace corridor, looking a little sad. The petite and white spirit pet squatted on the vermilion railing, looking at him eagerly. Fukang paused when he saw the scene in front of him. Just as he was about to speak, a childish voice suddenly sounded, guests are coming. Guests are coming. Hongyu was awakened instantly. He looked up and saw Fukang, frowning, what kind of guest is this? The spirit pet's voice was childish, my lord, the imperial husband. My lord, the imperial husband. Hongyu slapped him with a weak slap, full of dissatisfaction, don't talk nonsense. The little pet jumped flexibly and jumped towards Fukang. Fukang raised his hand and subconsciously wanted to slap it away, but for some reason, he withdrew his strength at the critical moment and silently reached out to take it. The little pet just curled up in his palm obediently, with a pair of smart eyes that were cute and bright, my lord. My lord. Fukang looked at it silently, and the more he looked at it, the more he liked it, so he reached out and touched its head a little clumsily. A light sneer sounded. You little traitor, Sooner or later I will fry you, roast you, and eat you. Hong Yu looked at a little thing that was clinging to the powerful and snorted, "You are not ashamed." The little pet ignored him. Fu Kang raised his eyes slightly and looked at Hong Yu. "I have something to talk to you about." "I am busy." Hong Yu turned his head and looked at the flowers outside the palace corridor. "Today's weather is really good, the sun is shining, and there are no clouds in the sky. It's suitable for going out to play." "Fu Kang." Hong Yu held his chin, his eyes fell on the blue sky in the distance, and he sighed deeply. "So annoying. I don't want to care about anyone." But Fu Kang obviously had a way to deal with him. His cold and indifferent voice soon sounded in his ears, "Your Majesty has given an oral order. The Imperial Astronomical Observatory." Zhan Hong Yu is listening to the order. Hong Yu was stunned, then turned his eyes and glared at him. "Didn't you just say that you had something to ask me? How did it become His Majesty's oral order? Are you deliberately deceiving me?" Fu Kang had no expression on his face. Hong Yu grumbled in dissatisfaction, stood up and brushed his sleeves, and knelt down to receive the order. "Your Majesty orders you to immediately divine and choose an auspicious day for marriage," Fu Kang said calmly, and added, "It is best to be in autumn." After saying this, he turned and left without staying for a moment. Hong Yu stared at his back, and the more he looked, the more he felt that he was showing off, and he wished he could burn a hole in his back. Auspicious day for marriage. Isn't it just that His Majesty is going to give him a status? What's there to be proud of? Hong Yu thought of Fu Kang's good luck. Since Chu Qinghuang's body was replaced by another person, Fu Kang has been blessed by heaven. Not only has his status and position risen, but his relationship has also been smooth sailing. Her Majesty the Queen dotes on him to the extreme, and almost always responds to his requests. Thinking about himself again, he was left with depression. Hong Yu stood on the corridor, looking down at the clear lake, where a beautiful and delicate face was reflected, sometimes frowning in confusion, sometimes sighing. He couldn't help wondering, where is he worse than Fu Kang? Obviously he is more beautiful, more lovely, sweet, and coaxing. Why is Fu Kang so favored, while he is tied to an unreliable red line by the confused Yu Lao? Did he have a grudge with Yu Lao in his previous life? The more Hong Yu thought about it, the more he felt that this was possible. Thinking of Princess Duanmu, who had been staying in the bedroom to cultivate herself these 2 days, Hong Yu couldn't help but feel a headache. Maybe he should go home. He has been away from home for too long, his father must miss him. He will go back to greet his parents and ask what red string the matchmaker is tying. Can he take the red string back and tie another one? Only the Queen's marriage. Hong Yu frowned and turned to the direction of the Imperial Observatory to ask for divination first and see the result. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 478. In March, spring blossomed and another battle report was delivered to the imperial capital. Qi Ling captured the prince of northern Xinjiang alive, and his combat ability was significantly reduced under the rat-proof weapon of northern Xinjiang. Qi Ling led his cavalry to attack the 3 cities of Ji, Yu, and Yan in one go, and killed the opponent's general with one arrow, causing the northern Xinjiang cavalry to be instantly defeated. Like a plate of loose sand. I believe that in the near future, news of the great victory of Ziki and Dazhu will reach the imperial capital. After Chu Qinghuang read the good news, the gloomy mood caused by Chu Tianyan in recent days finally improved. With this good news, she went to see the emperor of northern Xinjiang Duanmu again. The red lacquer palace door slowly opened, and the palace garden, which had been silent for a long time, finally received a hint of life. Chu Qinghuang walked into the palace garden and saw a man who was dozing off on a chair under a tree. He hadn't seen him for a while and he was obviously much more decadent and haggard. The chin and mustache that had not been taken care of for many days were messy, the robe he was wearing was a little wrinkled, and the posture he was sitting in the chair was slightly curled up. The whole person looked lifeless, like a bereaved dog. I have wronged His Majesty the Emperor during this time. Chu Qing Huang looked at the haggard and pale man in front of her and bowed gracefully. I have not treated you well, please forgive me. Duan Muyu didn't react at first. It took him a while to realize that someone was talking. He opened his eyes slightly, half-lidded as if he was afraid of the light. When he saw Chu Qing Huang standing not far in front of him, his pupils narrowed slightly and he looked at her for a moment. After a long time, he slowly said, "Your Majesty the Queen." The voice was hoarse and sounded like he had no strength. Chu Qing Huang nodded. "What brought you here today?" Duan Muyu finally sat up straight, and his tone was naturally sarcastic when he spoke. "You're not here to show off your power again, are you?" "Showing off one's strength does not count, because it is not necessary," Chu Qing Huang said lightly. "It's just that I received another battle report today, and I personally sent it to Emperor Duanmu to have a look and share my experiences." "Battle report?" Duanmuyu's hand on the armrest of the chair tightened undetectably, and then he relaxed his body and sneered, "Since Her Majesty the Queen is already sure of victory, why don't you wait until you have completely carved up the territory of the Northern Territory before showing off in front of me? After the Northern Territory is divided up, Emperor Duanmu will become a slave of the subjugated country." Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows. "A slave of the subjugated country is worthy of my coming to see him in person." Duanmuyu's expression changed. Before the country was destroyed in northern Xinjiang, Emperor Duanmu was still the king of a country and could sit on an equal footing with me, so I am not considered a noble general when I come here. Duanmuyu's face turned pale, but his tone was lukewarm. "Her Majesty the Queen violated the principle of friendship between countries and imprisoned me without authorization. She also took advantage of my absence in northern Xinjiang to provoke civil strife in northern Xinjiang and trigger a war between the two countries. Taking the opportunity to unite with the Zhou dynasty to carve up the northern territory, such dishonest behavior will probably arouse the jealousy of the kings of other countries. One day, Her Majesty the Queen thinks that Ziki will not become the second northern territory." Chu Qing Huang smiled faintly. "No." Duanmuyu's expression turned gloomy. "Because I'm not that stupid. I know what the true job of a king of a country is." Chu Qing Huang raised her hand and brushed the hair on her temples. Her voice was leisurely and filled with the air of controlling the overall situation. "I will carefully train enough spies. I will not go to other countries alone to inquire about information with nothing to do. Even if I go there in person, I will do it under the premise of ensuring that I have the ability to protect myself." Duanmuyu's eyebrows were silent. He didn't know whether he had accepted his fate or had nothing to say. "Besides, I am very satisfied with the status quo and will not have unrealistic ambitions. At least before my territory is strong enough to annex the world, I will not try to provoke a war or bring about self-destruction." Duanmuyu said coldly, "So you came here today just to ridicule me?" "No." Chu Qing Huang asked someone to hand him the battle report, and his voice became colder and more distant. "I am dealing with your territory, so I should bring you the latest news. But today is probably the last time I take the initiative. I came to see you. The next time we meet, you should have become the king of subjugation." After saying this, he ignored Duanmuyu's reaction and turned around to leave. Under the palace steps behind him, Duanmuyu was sitting in a chair with a stiff posture, looking at her slender back. The intense emotions in his heart were rolling like huge waves. He never thought that he, who had been the emperor for more than 20 years, would be defeated at the hands of a teenage girl with yellow hair. It was a great shame and humiliation. Duanmuyu clenched his fist fiercely, feeling extremely ashamed and humiliated. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 479. On March 13, Hongyu asked to see Her Majesty the Queen at Changming Palace and informed her of a good and auspicious day to get married. Then she asked for a trip home in April, and Chu Qinghuang agreed. Hongyu has been staying in Ziki for more than 2 years, and it's time to go home and see his parents. August 19th, August 26th, and September 6th are all auspicious days. Chu Qinghuang held her chin and muttered, "Then let's set the wedding ceremony on August 19th. After the ceremony, we will add ink to show that as the Empress, I attach great importance to the imperial husband." The students who participated in ink can't help but feel grateful for the imperial husband's grace. They think that it is thanks to the imperial husband that they have the opportunity to participate in the scientific examination in advance, and they can also take this opportunity to conquer a group of people. The heart of a student. Fuekang stood aside, pursed his thin lips, and looked at Chu Qinghuang without blinking, his eyes as tender as the sea. Once the heart of gratitude takes root and sprouts, the attitude of loyalty will be more pure in the future, and the road of you, the royal husband, will be smoother. Chu Qinghuang raised her eyes and looked into the moving color in his eyes. "Fuekang, are you so moved that you want to commit yourself to me again?" Fuekang hummed, and his voice was soft and gentle. "I want to wash myself clean and smell good, send myself to the master's bed, and let him ravage me." Chu Qinghuang's expression was subtle, and then she raised her eyebrows slightly. "How do you want me to ravage you?" Fuekang's attitude was docile. "Master can ravage her as much as she wants. I will definitely not resist. Let's do this. After we get married, you will be responsible for reviewing documents and handling government affairs every day, and I will be responsible for having fun and reading about the most beautiful men in the world." Chu Qinghuang said calmly, "If you do well, you can also be a regent like my father." Fuekang was silent for a moment. "Master, don't you think twice?" "Think twice about what?" "If I had great power, I would build a golden house and hide my master in the golden house. No one would be allowed to see me. He could only see and talk to me every day and enjoy 3 meals a day with me." Fuekang said domineeringly, "No matter whether they are beautiful men or ugly men, the master must stay away from them. I go to bed with the master every night. I can serve the master in dressing, bathing, eating, everything is true. It's in the hands of others, but the master can only see me." Chu Qinghuang listened silently, with no expression on her beautiful and noble face. She just raised her hand and hooked him casually. Fuekang followed her gesture and took a step closer, kneeling down. "Are you going to rebel, you brat?" Chu Qinghuang reached out and grabbed his ears. Her calm tone was a bit coercive. "If the tiger doesn't show its power, do you think I'm a sick cat?" Fuekang smiled sullenly. "Master is not a tiger, but a real dragon. You know I'm a real dragon and you still dare to hide me? How dare you?" Fuekang took her hand, put it to his lips and kissed it. "Master is used to being cowardly. Master allows me to become more and more bold and pampers me to the point of being lawless, so I have to accept such a domineering and jealous Fuekang." Chu Qinghuang looked at him quietly for a while, then slowly narrowed her eyes. "Should I not indulge you like this?" Fuekang was not afraid at all and said with a calm smile, "It's too late for my master to regret it." "Clean yourself up tonight," Chu Qinghuang said coldly. "I think you need a lesson." Fuekang was silent for a moment, and then hope appeared in his eyes. "Master, do you want me to sleep with you?" Chu Qinghuang's tone was calm. "What do you think? Although I'm looking forward to it, but..." "There is no but." Chu Qinghuang interrupted him coldly and forcefully. "My words are the imperial decree, do you still dare to resist it?" "Don't dare. Whenever I say we get married at that time, and when I say we go to bed with us, we go to bed at that time. You have no room to refute." Chu Qinghuang said. "So who is hiding whom?" Fuekang raised his eyes slightly and looked at her innocently. "Master, are you hiding me?" Chu Qinghuang said calmly, "I want you to be an all-round young man who is good at literature and martial arts, gentle and virtuous. able to walk in the hall and enter the court, proficient in all kinds of music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, with both beauty and strength, who can criticize and handle government affairs, dear husband. Fu Kang was delicately silent. If he is disobedient, he will be chained up and he will stay in bed to review the memorial. If he criticizes poorly, he will be whipped with a whip. In his free time, he will perform 18 kinds of martial arts for me, such as playing the piano, cooking tea, and dancing swords. If he performs well, he will be rewarded. If the performance is not good, continue to smoke. Fu Kang bit his lip lightly, but the smile on his face became more and more obvious. Master, are you trying to scare me like a 3-year-old child? Chu Qing Huang raised his eyebrows. Who said I was scaring you? Since it's not a threat. Fu Kang said. He suddenly stood up and picked her up. Let's go take a bath now. When we are clean and fragrant, I will serve the master well. This sentence was meaningful, with a bit of pretense of experience, but it also revealed a bit of immaturity, and seemed a little lacking in confidence. Chu Qing Huang was held by him, but she didn't have much reaction. She just casually reached out and hooked his neck, with a bit of confusion in her voice. How do you want to serve me? Fu Kang didn't say anything, and just carried her towards the bathing hall. $window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 480. Perhaps because they were interrupted halfway through their previous bath, Fu Kang had always felt regretful and could not wait to relieve that feeling, so he held Chu Qing Huang in his arms and went to bathe with high morale. But obviously, he always overestimated his self-control. Spring is the season of budding. The beloved is right in front of you, with skin as white as cream, beautiful face, and charming luster in the corners of your eyebrows and eyes. How can you control yourself? Fu Kang took a deep breath and tried hard to suppress the blush on his face. However, he did not know whether the water drops rolling down his forehead were caused by sweat or heat. His tense body tried hard to restrain the reaction that should not have happened. This look, like being on the verge of collapse, with a slightly fragile look, against that handsome face and the charming style in the corners of his eyes, looks very tempting to commit a crime. Chu Qing Huang reached out her hand, not minding adding fuel to the fire on his self-control that was already on the verge of collapse. Her slender fingers brushed across his eyebrows, hooked a drop of crystal sweat, and slowly brushed across his tightly pursed lips along the high bridge of his nose. Did you enjoy the bath? Fu Kang's throat rolled unconsciously. Is the master done? Yeah. Then. Fu Kang's steady voice showed forbearance. Is the master out? Can you carry him? Fu Kang's whole body seemed to be on fire, but he nodded firmly. I can carry him. Chu Qing Huang leaned against the wall of the pool, and said lazily, Fu Kang, do you remember what the picture was in the booklet you read before? Fu Kang was stunned, and then his face flushed. Chu Qing Huang's voice was bewitching, as if coaxing an ignorant child. Do you want to recall it? Fu Kang's ears were burning, and the heat in his body increased. Even his breathing felt hot. He couldn't help but reach out and hold Chu Qing Huang's slender arms, pulling her into his arms, and lowered his head to kiss her fiery lips. The water temperature gradually rose. The air also became charming. Fu Kang's thoughts began to become agitated. He even felt that he urgently needed a bucket of cold water at this moment, but with the soft jade and warm fragrance in his arms, the cold water that used to be useful had become particularly unpleasant. Chu Qing Huang's voice was leisurely. Let's try it. This sentence was like amnesty, and it was also a powerful medicine that triggered the collapse of will. Fu Kang pursed his lips and said in a tense voice, We haven't gotten married yet. We are still naked and honest even before getting married, Chu Qing Huang said indifferently, just think of it as me favoring you. It will happen sooner or later anyway. Fu Kang took a deep breath, and without hesitation, he carried Chu Qing Huang out of the bath. He simply dried his body, put on a wide robe, and wrapped both of them at the same time. Fu Kang's steps were a little anxious, and he quickly carried Chu Qing Huang back to the bedroom. As soon as he arrived at the inner hall, he pressed her down on the dragon bed. Dense kisses followed, eager and passionate, hot as fire. Master Fu Kang's voice was low and tense, revealing restraint and forbearance. Is it really okay? Chu Qing Huang lay lazily on the bed and hummed, just don't be too rude. Fu Kang obviously still had some concerns, but what if? What if? Chu Qing Huang raised her eyebrows and looked at him leisurely. If I say it's okay, then it's okay. Who do you listen to? Fu Kang answered without hesitation, listen to the master. After the words fell, he raised his hand and waved off the only robe they were wearing in an instant. The curtain fell, covering the tempting scenery on the dragon bed.